Okay, good morning. This is the quotation video for 562 Toorak Road, Toorak. We're looking at what needs to be done for property 562. So this video is intended to give an overview of my proposed solution. Firstly, this front garden is basically structurally sound, but plants are overgrown. What I'm proposing is pruning down this tree, which is Acmina, bringing this dwarf quince down to size, taking a little bit of the top off this Japanese maple, removing these agapanthus in the foreground and replacing them with 2 or 3 small shrubs, something pretty, something tough, something which will fit with the rest of the garden. The rest of this area just here, the lawns, the structure is fine. The conditions are very poor because they're being allowed to become neglected and over dry due to the drought. The soil needs to be treated with wetting agent and improved, and then grass seed scattered in this area. The roses in this front area need to be pruned back for winter and reduced in size. This is a Japanese hawthorn. I think we should prune that down to size. You can see how bushy it's becoming here. It doesn't need to be this big. Around this corner, deal with the weeds, etc. in this corner. The wandering Jew is very nice. It needs to be poisoned, and the roses have got black spots. So this rose and this rose in the corner need to be pruned for winter. I really like this little prawn bush. We'll leave that one there. However, in the corner here we've got a seedling of a Moreton Bay fig, a Port Jackson fig. This needs to come out. The hibiscus needs to be pruned back a little in the front and just bring it down to size and shape. I like that there. It's doing quite well. This conifer tree here, the upper foliage is being eaten alive by casement moths. It needs to be sprayed. It will grow back in time. Nothing to worry about. It's probably suffering largely just due to this insect infestation. Okay, the next thing I'm proposing is this area here with all the ivy is quite effective as a ground cover and low maintenance, definitely. So the idea is we will encourage the ivy to grow, but in the short term we're going to remove the spider plants, which are these plants here, which you'll find are all over the place, and also the agapanthus, which are also intermittently planted in and around the front. There's no requirement for these to be here. I think it will look quite nice just with ivy in the foreground. So as a direct result, we'll probably remove the existing small plants which are here, which look like their roots regrowing from plants which have been killed. This abelia I like. This little citrus plant, it's the root regrowing, so remove that. And this is an oak tree, whether it's a stump regrowing or what, I'm not certain. Judging by the shape of the growth, I'd say that's a stump regrowing, so I suggest we remove that. All these agapanthus here I want to dig out and reuse as more of a feature planting. So these agapanthus and the agapanthus over there, and the odd other ones planted in clumps around the property, I want to dig up and reuse those. My intention is to plant a row of agapanthus all the way up along this footpath in about the same place, maybe a fraction closer than these ones, as a row all the way up here to this point, break it again and continue all the way up here right around to as far as I can get the agapanthus to grow. The area under here is sort of a dead spot. It's really hard to grow things under here, but I'm proposing that we use the spider plants, which are also all over the place and basically are not much more than weeds, and plant those as filler underneath this area here. This tree in the corner is commonly known as a gold nugget bush or gold speckle bush. Fairly low maintenance. This one just needs a bit of a prune and maybe a feed. The biggest problem with this property is lack of water, so that needs to be resolved. I notice that there are sprinkler heads around the property. We need to examine what the story is and find out whether they're working. If they're not working, fix them. So we're going to pull out anything which is deemed to be a weed tree, of which there's quite a few. This magnolia obviously was once upon a time quite established. It's been pruned off as a root and the root's regrowing. I plan on keeping that there. That's never going to be a fabulous tree, but it's going to be a nice looking shrub with lovely spring flowers. We'll keep this maple here. This is a very nice little tree. This tree here, we need to think about what we're going to do. This one is actually a privet. It's a weed tree, and our choices are physically remove it or cut it off very low at ground level and allow it to regrow. Being a privet, chances are very high it will reshoot from its root and you'll get a nice shrub into this area. Now this area here, I propose, as suggested earlier, agapanthus along the front. Define this bed using these holistic basalt boulders from wall to wall, and then back in this corner either 3 gold nugget bushes, which will fill this area reasonably nicely. A bit boring, but cheap and inexpensive. Or potentially 2 gold nugget bushes, and in the foreground maybe something floral and pretty like a rhododendron. In the foreground of this, across here, a camellia, and possibly another camellia in this spot. So it'll create a little bit of a barrier here, and I think that's all you really need to do. Possibly introduce some ground covers into this area. I notice you've got a few different types of ground covers, maybe some violets or a juga or something. We need to dig out this. Quite like this silver birch, this is lovely. You need to think about whether you actually want another tree on the property. If so, conceivably, a silver birch dead smack in the middle of this garden bed here would grow into this spot and look quite pretty. For this area here, I propose digging up some of the ivy roots that we've got all over the front of the property and replanting them into the bald spots. It won't fill the bald spots overnight, but they will expand and cover the entire area. Once that's done, you'll end up with a very low maintenance piece of garden bed. However, very boring. I notice in my examinations you've got quite a few small camellia plants floating around. They look like they were camellia plants and someone's hacked them off at ground level because they were probably as sick or sicker than this one. The good news is camellia plants are remarkably tough and they are recovering. So as a proposal, I would suggest that we put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional camellias along this area to divide between this property and the adjoining property. And after removing these palms in the corner, in this corner possibly something like a rhododendron, which I would like. That would fill that area. It would get a bit of sun, which rhododendrons need to flower, and therefore a bit of interest to this spot. This area up here is a big unknown. I'm still thinking that if we use either the spider plants or this fish fern, which is what this is here, so this is fish fern and these are spider plants, we dig these up and distribute those into the really awkward spots under the bay window. That will then leave us with